All right. Thanks again, everybody, for joining me and Mel today. What we're going to discuss is exploring software, particularly for those like volunteer programs that work directly with particular individuals, your clients. Uh, like I mentioned earlier, for those who are just joining, this meeting is going to be recorded, and you'll receive an email after this meeting sometime in the next 24 hours that will have that link. And it's going to have some other helpful resources too, like links to an online demonstration of both our volunteer impact and client impact module that Mel and I will discuss today, along with other helpful resources along the way. And for those who didn't hear earlier, this meeting is this meeting is being recorded, and please put yourself on mute, as we'll save at least 15 minutes for Q&A at the end. So with that, I'll introduce myself. My name's Micah. I'm a software sales advisor at Better Impact, and we're a volunteer software management company. We support small nonprofits to enterprise scaled organizations with multiple locations. I work with particularly those who are in the United States, on the western half of the United States. I'm located in the Pacific Northwest, but I was born and raised in Kansas, Kansas City area. Went to college at the University of Missouri, graduated with a psychology degree, and now I live up here with my wife. We're big into fitness and nutrition. We love hiking. It's beautiful up here, endless national parks and national forests. And with that, I'll introduce Mel.
Hi, thank you, Micah. So good to see you, and welcome everyone. My name is Mel Watson. I work at Island Senior Resources, which is a non-profit that's located on Whidbey Island, about 50 minutes north. Yes, north. I got my north and south mixed up of Seattle. Obviously, I'm not from here, so I've been working at Island Senior Resources since 2013. I've had a whole bunch of different roles, including directing an adult day program until the pandemic stopped. I've done a lot of volunteer coordination, intake. I was the lead in researching and then the implementation of and the customization of Better Impact for our nonprofit. And, largely before we were starting to use Better Impact, we were an Excel spreadsheet and paper organisation. So I was born in the UK, and I left there with my family when I was 2, grew up in Australia, and then I now live in the Pacific Northwest on Whidbey Island after traveling the world as a musician. So yeah, I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you here, and it's nice. Yeah, Whidbey Island is a ferry ride away from Seattle. Yeah, like I said, don't know if that's north or south, but yeah, it's glad to have two. And now it's everyone else's turn. So where is everybody else from here? Do we have let's see, a lot of the times we have people all around. So feel free to enter the chat, your name, where you're from, the organization, and we'll see who's all here today. And while everybody introduces, takes the time to introduce themselves, just going to give a quick summary of what we're going to cover today. We're going to discuss some common problems that many of you may be facing when managing volunteers, and then how they interact with clients. We'll do a quick Zoom poll with 4 questions, briefly discuss a survey I found interesting on why the right software tools matter. And then Mel will go into her journey, and she'll give you all tips on finding the software that will best fit your needs. We'll save some time for a quick overview of volunteer and client impact. And then, like I mentioned earlier, there'll be some resources coming along the way. At the end of this webinar, I'll share a PDU link, so that way you can receive credits for attending this webinar. And with that, let me go ahead and check the chat and see who's all here. So we have Kate with Abbotsford Hospice. Okay. All right. And then Casa in Wisconsin. So we're in the north. And that's Leah. And Kendra from Kentucky, home of the Innocents. And Mary's another Kentuckian. So yeah, we're starting to get on the eastern and western part. Aloha from Hawaii Care Choices. Here we go. Now we're going west. Formerly Hospice of Hilo. Was just in Hawaii last month for my honeymoon. Beautiful, beautiful area. And we have, more Kentucky, more Pacific Northwest. Stacy Hicks in Olympia. I'm in Tacoma, Washington. My wife works in Lacey, so we're right next door. Hawaii Care Choices, more from the Big Island, more representation there. Melissa in Gladstone, Michigan. All right, and then Colorado Springs. We're hitting the middle of the country, and then just south of that, Morgan and Scottsdale, Erica and San Diego, and then now we're international that I see with Heidi from Alberta, and then Sarah in Canada too. Charlotte, we have a great crowd today. Great crowd today. So more from California, city of Lake Forest, Charlene, Janessa, in Canada, Alberta, Auburn, Alabama, Seth White, and then Janet in New Jersey, East Coast, and then more East Coast, Ursula, Interfaith Caregivers. Thank you, everybody, for introducing yourself. So yeah, let's get into it. So, and I saw there are hospices, different, and a bunch of different programs. So these are just laying out what some of the common volunteer programs that have volunteers working directly with clients. Like a common example of ours is a hospice. So volunteers work directly with patients. The patients are the clients. So a lot of the times they're trying to find a way to match their volunteers with their patients, and that extends to other different types of sectors as well, like tutoring, mentoring programs. Like a library or school may have volunteers that work with and mentor students. So we want to match those volunteers with the right students, and the list goes on and on. Several different types of social services, pet therapy, therapeutic course writing centers, immigration, refugee services. So what all problems do we all share? So Mel just touched on it. So a lot of data entry, and a lot of it comes with using multiple and disconnected systems. And the particular problem here is we're looking at two different types of individuals, not only volunteers and their information, but also other individuals, who they're working with, your clients. So it's one issue when we're just managing volunteers on spreadsheets, but then who they're working with on other spreadsheets or other CRMs, it can get quite discombobulated and confusing, lead to a whole bunch of data entry. The information stored on there may not even be safe. It just takes all your time away to lead and engage your program, communicate with your volunteers, and then maybe there is a solution out there, but of course there's limitations in financing with budget. So it can be a vicious cycle, but you're not alone. Mel's been there. The solution of what we hope is our volunteer management software solution, Volunteer Impact, with our optional add-on Client Impact. And Volunteer Impact's a top-rated all-in-one solution for managing your volunteer program. And with our add-on module, Client Impact, it just adds on to that, giving you the ability to match volunteers with who they're working with. You can run reports on their interactions, what their interests are, so you can help match and identify. And it's all in a secure environment. Better Impact's ISO 27001 certified. We're HIPAA compliant, so we're dedicated on keeping your data safe and secure. And then now let's do a fun little quiz on here. I see we have around 20 people, so yeah, we may get some interesting insights here. I'm going to launch a poll on here. As you see, this is showing the first question here on the slide, but there are 4 questions to this. I believe I've just launched it, so I'll give you all a couple minutes to respond while I kind of go over each question. So the first one's regarding, so just from that last slide, which problem kind of resonated with you the most? Was it regarding like managing data in multiple systems? Is it the data security? Is it a lot of manual output through data entry? And then not enough time to lead engage volunteers or clients, or a tight budget? And if you've gone to the second question, as you're filling it out, just the next 2 questions are actually pretty similar. How are you managing your volunteers? How are you managing your clients? And the options are a spreadsheet, a VMS for volunteers, CRM for clients. And then there's other 2. And then if you want to share what other is, feel free to speak out in the chat. Because I've always, in my time here, I've always learned people are managing things different ways. So I'm always curious to know what those are. A lot of the times it's another CRM. A lot of the times it's like Microsoft Access or something else. We're doing great on poll participation so far. Thank you guys so much. Looks like about 3/4 of you participated already. The last question, the poll for those who haven't gone to it, is just simply asking what's most at risk if a change doesn't occur sooner rather than later. 1 and 2 regard volunteer and or client turnover, disengagement. Then 3's for staff and wasted money or potential opportunity, damage to the org or program reputation or something else. So just about everybody participated. I'll give it about another 20 seconds here, and then I'm going to go ahead and share the results. So that we'll be counting down now. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, done. All right. Let me share what we have here. So, okay. So yeah, a lot of people here are on the same page. That first question, which problem resonated with you the most? So over 2/3 managing data in multiple and disconnected systems. So that's something I've learned every time I meet with people is they're just spending too much time there, and it's obviously leading to not enough time to lead with your volunteers and clients. It's almost over half enter there. And then in terms of managing volunteers, looks like we got a mix of everything: spreadsheets, VMS, something else other. That's pretty interesting. And then it's about the same breakdown with clients. And then for number 4, looks like the most popular response was volunteer turnover, disengagement, which totally understands that if a change doesn't occur sooner rather than later. We want our volunteers to be recognized, and we want to work with them and make them feel empowered. So yeah, let's see. Okay, let's see where people's responses are on here, and then I'll pass it on over to Mel. Clients and paper files. Okay, that's what Heidi said. So there's an EMR NetSmart. I'm familiar with NetSmart, and then CRM is what Mary said. And Heidi feels biggest risk is time being wasted. Keeping track of hours is what Erica mentioned. Yeah. All right. I appreciate everybody's participation in that. That's very, very insightful. And now let's, the last thing I just want to share before I pass it on to Mel is there's a survey that was conducted by G2, which is a software review site. And there's a question I found interesting on here that had a response of saying that more than half of employees are unhappy at work because of the software tools that they're using. It just highlights the importance of being provided the right tools to perform the job plays a high critical role in our level of job satisfaction. And if we're not presented with the right tools, our efficiency and effectiveness decreases, and it can lead to unhappiness in our role. So you can kind of think, have you ever become like dissatisfied at work due to missing or mismatched software? Because in that same survey, about 1 in every 8 employees has quit a job because of mismatched software. So the fact that it's a cited reason for people leaving a job just shows and speaks to how important it is to make sure people are properly equipped. So let's get you and everybody working with the right tools to make you feel less like this and more of this. The old saying, turn those frowns upside down. So let's hear from Mel now, who has achieved just that. I'll pass that on to her.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Micah. Yeah, so as Micah was saying, you know, we moved over, we found a centralized database system through Better Impact, but originally Island Senior Resources, I'll tell you about us, we provide essential resources for seniors and adults with disabilities, their families and caregivers throughout Island County. We're the only private non-profit in the Northwest Washington that provides the array of resources that we do. So the array of resources are a whole bunch of different programs, including Meals on Wheels, volunteer medical transport, community outreach. We have a thrift store as well. That's a part of our organisation. We're an independent non-profit, and we've been serving Island County since 1972. So we've been around for a long time. We have around 5,000 actually. That's getting closer to 6,000 now. clients are going up very fast. Clients receiving services that range from one-off referrals through things like Sheba, Medicare advisors, to multiple program support via case management services and everything in between. So we're small in one respect, but large in another. We have a number of programs. A lot of clients work through different programs or gain resources through different programs. And you can imagine that, we have a lot of data, like I'm sure you all do. So we've been using volunteer and client impact for about 2 years. We actually started off using just volunteer impact, and then we added as we went along. It was a case of convincing our organisation that we needed to go in this direction. So we took little steps, which worked for us. So the solutions we previously used were paper and Excel spreadsheets. That's about it. Yeah, the solutions that we used. The challenges faced by using the previous systems, the main challenges were that we were siloed. As you can imagine, different programs having different managers, each having their own filing cabinets in their office, responding to their client needs, and not necessarily going beyond the borders of that program very often. Sometimes there was integration, like through our aging and disability resources and nutrition program. But as you can imagine, there was a copy of each for each client in each location. You can imagine what that adds up to. So each department was running an almost independent program with its own systems and databases held in filing cabinets and computer hard drives, while many of our clients received services from multiple programs. It created lots of duplications, inconsistencies across departments, challenges in reporting, accuracy, and overall awareness of the workings of the whole organisation versus one program that a volunteer or staff member may be a part of. So you can imagine it was hard for each department to understand what was happening in the other departments, with these kind of siloed processes and situations. So that created another layer of challenges. So the impact was a challenge to offer a client-centred approach to support, where each department could see clearly the requests and needs across programs, plan for what may be needed in the short and long term, and respond appropriately. So we were challenged with having this client-centred approach when we had such a siloed process. So the key pain points were several tasks were manual, as in lots of them. Reporting and data was not accurate. We would often find conflicting pieces of data, and we weren't sure which one to relate to. And there was so much time wasted. When you sit down and add up just the staff time, not to mention the resources in addition to staff time, just a lot of wastage.
Yeah.
And having the time to actually even look at that is another thing, because often with nonprofits, and I'm sure you can all appreciate, you're so busy doing the work that, the time spent evaluating is not really part of the budget.
Yeah. And just going off what Mel said on like how that time really adds up. So before she joined this webinar, she filled out something that we have on our website called a return on investment calculator. And that's what these graphics are showing. So when she filled that out, that calculator out, it showed that she saved about 1,500 hours per year. And it shows the value of the staff time saved in dollars as well. And then it just breaks down just kind of those hours for like what they were and what they were for. So I don't know if you wanted to speak on any of this like kind of pie graph, like because it seems like onboarding administration, the in-person trainings were taking a lot of your time, Mel.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, just internal communications. I mean, I could go on for a long time about how much We love the notes in Better Impact because internal communications, it took a lot of communicating to try and get people connected to another program's resources. You know, it's different now. I can tell you it's very different, very seamless. The creating reports, I mean, my gosh, we're creating reports now that we didn't even know we could, we didn't even know it was a report in the past. There's so many options in Better Impact, ways of looking at clients and volunteers that we weren't able to do in the past. We just simply didn't have the time to kind of create the reports that you can create. Updating volunteer profile information, getting records straight. We have to, we get audited by an organisation called Northwest Regional Council because many of our programs are part of the that governing body, and we are required to report to that governing body, and we have processes now in place that mean that we enter the data once, and then our finance department extracts the data for the report. There's no kind of like, here's the data, and here's the data, and here's that, I'm going to change it, and now here's the data, and then finally it gets sent. It's not like that at all. It's literally you put it in once, and then it gets taken out at the end. It's amazing, I've got to say. Entering volunteer hours. We're still in the process of transitioning some of our larger programs because, as you can imagine, it's like trying to spruce up a Titanic or something, add a new engine to a Titanic. It's a large program with lots of moving parts, but the volunteers that we have been able to automate with like the time card process for our thrift store, and people being able to log their own hours and that kind of thing, it's saving so much time already, and that's not with full implementation. We haven't been able to implement all of our volunteers quite yet, but we're getting there. So that, yeah, scheduling volunteers, our medical transport department, we're getting to the point now where volunteers can pick and choose their volunteer tasks, versus often it would take 8 to 10 phone calls to try and find a volunteer driver for a ride. So that's improving as well over time as folks get used to this new system. And yeah, 2 years and it's still new for us. Exporting addresses and emailing volunteers. I mean, that has saved so much time. Not doing mail merges and things like that. Typing applications, yeah, that people are just filling it in. As a volunteer fills in the information, it's received and it stays, and we don't have to retype it, which is fantastic. And conducting in-person training, I mean, the whole process has been completely transformed. It's much more seamless, and it's continuing to improve, which is wonderful. Yeah.
Yep. So feel free to share. I remember Mel and I connected like during the dark COVID times when she started checking around, open to trial. So yeah, share a little more about just kind of how that whole process went, because a lot who come to these, they always sometimes may not know where to start. So they kind of want to know.
Yeah.
Feel free to share that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So it actually started when COVID hit. I went from kind of directing this program, which was in person. It was a respite program for caregivers. So when that stopped during the pandemic, I kind of transitioned into helping our volunteers. And what I quickly realized, and I was quickly almost, passed out over, was just the volume of Excel spreadsheet data that I'm not a fan of, like reams and reams of Excel spreadsheet data to have to keep going back and looking and comparing and all that kind of stuff. And so I just started looking around at some alternatives, and I was talking with my bosses about it and talking with my co-workers. And this kind of started a conversation, that everyone started talking about, centralized database system. That's what we need. And so we got a committee together that would do some research and look for possibilities. I had already done a whole bunch of research, and I was already sold on the one that I thought was perfect for us. So we collectively did a whole bunch more research. We grabbed the ones that we thought were possibilities collectively, And then we did basically features and what we need and what they have. And, you know, sometimes it's a process of not even knowing what you need. You know what I mean? I mean, you kind of, through the research process, you start to realize what you could have versus not knowing actually in the beginning. You just know that what you're doing is not really great. So it was a big learning curve for us. As I say, our processes were very old school, and they worked for a long time, but they kind of started not to work anymore. And so we had that whole list. We got trials on many of them, and Better Impact was the one that I kind of begged my bosses, please, can we just go with this, because I can't stand Excel spreadsheets any longer. It was at that point we had there was 350 volunteers or something, and I was having to look at, you know, driver's license expiry dates and things like that on reams and reams of lines of data, and it's just no fun. So we got the trial of Better Impact, and then it was a matter of some of our social services folks were wanting a different client-based system. But it turns out that after all of the evaluations and the trials that we tried, it turns out that Better Impact worked the best for what we needed. And so that's when we were able to add the client module. And we also have a member module as well that we use for our PIP list providers. They're private in-home providers, people who offer caregiving and that kind of thing. They're professionals, and also our community partners. So we don't have a memberships per se, but we use that module for those particular community partners. So yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So why we selected volunteering client impact, one of the big concerns was security. Our finance director was like, HIPAA compliant, it's got to be. And I was like, it is, look, it is. The ability to customize has been absolutely phenomenal for us. That's been one of my main jobs, was to go through and look at all the different kinds of forms that we used to collect data, and then tailor Better Impact for that. We have 5 sub-accounts that we use, so client and volunteer sub-accounts, and each of them uses different combinations of the customization. And so it's just wonderful that you can input that piece of data and it can be used at any one of those sub-accounts, or not be seen, or it can be seen by some people and not by others. So I love that it's so customizable and easy to use. One of the big challenges that we have is that at ISR we have varying degrees of computer literacy, and so you know, some of the other systems were kind of just very complex, and I don't know, Better Impact has done a great job of making it accessible. So yeah, ease of use, it's very easy to use. The customer support, I've got to tell you a story about customer support. So there have been times where I've been online at like 11:30 at night, and I've been like, this burning question. This is in the beginning, and I sent a question out, and there's someone over the other side of the world, Better Impact, would answer my question for me, and I'm like, this is so great. So that's, the customer support is really excellent. The other thing that I really love, and we just got a response, like one of our folks from our medical transport, they're responsible for doing some of the data input for medical transport, and they wanted to have the filtering appear a certain way, and for it to stay that way. So the filtering, I don't know if this might not make sense, but we were able to put a request into Better Impact if they could please update this particular part of filtering, and they did it. And so now she wanted me to make sure that in this meeting today that I thank Better Impact for doing that, because it's saving her many minutes and re-clicking of a filtering thing that was kind of for her, it was like, no, I don't want to do this. So Better Impact are really helpful, and they offer an opportunity to improve the system dependent upon good ideas from customers. So that's good. And the unlimited tailored admins, that's another real benefit. So we have administrators who can see very little, and administrators who have full administration and can see all sub-accounts from the enterprise level and all the sub accounts and make any changes. So it's very tailorable. You can have people just accessing a certain part or all of it, depending. The customizable application forms are fantastic. One of our application forms we call a help request. So we use a QR code, and people in the community can send out a request for resources and support through that QR code. We have community partners using that QR code, so emergency services, professionals, hospitals, social service experts use that QR code, and they create an account for themselves, and they make referrals for clients they're working with, which is great. The client connection tool is really cool. So we use it in a couple of different ways. We use it for volunteers, say medical transport folks who are going to go and pick up a client. There's an area where we fill out information for volunteers, and then when a volunteer logs into their app on their phone, they can click on the client details and get, say, client address, a link to the map that we've put in there for them, a QR code for a ferry boat ride if they need to go on a ferry boat ride. Anything we want volunteers to have access to, we can have on their phone. The other thing that we use that for is one of our sub accounts we actually use for our case management staff, and we make use of all the volunteer tools, but for case management. So we actually use client encounters for reporting. We use that volunteer tool for staff to be able to understand, client addresses and things like that when they're doing in-home visits. So we've kind of done a little workaround so our staff can have the same access as our volunteers, which is awesome. The internal client note update process using BI email and referrals. Yeah, so the notes, basically that whole notes process has been a game changer for us. We use it kind of like a ticketing system, like some folks would use a ticketing system. If someone calls, they open up a ticket and then it gets referred and it gets responded to. We use the notes for that. So we can click on a client profile and have a complete history of all the departments they've received services from, what the interactions were, when the services started, when the services stopped. That combined with customized fields means that we really have a great understanding of our clients. And we can honestly say that we are a client-centered organization, which is what we're aiming for. The QR codes logins for the thrift store. So yeah, we've got that set up on a computer, so folks can have the QR code on the name tag. They can get their QR code through their app on their phone as a volunteer, or maybe they got it set up in a card system where they can go and pick up their card and shine it at the camera, or they can log in using their username. But that's a QR code for logins for volunteer hours. We use that at the thrift store, and it's great. And reports run directly from finance, reducing time in staff creating reports. I've got to say, love that. And our finance department are loving it too. Yeah. So yeah, using BI has allowed ISR to be more responsive. We're truly becoming a client-centered organization. Yes. That allows us to be more responsive already. And, this is not even with full implementation. I can see in a year and a half's time when all of our departments are able to fully use Better Impact, the benefits are going to be just huge. So moving forward, we see so much room for growth and improvement, and look forward to the time when all our departments are using BI to its fullest capacity. It was a huge culture shift for ISR to move to a centralised volunteer and client management system, and we're still in the implementation process. The investment needs to come from managers. That's one big thing that we learned. It's really important. So if you can convince your managers, you're going to save a lot of time. The investment needs to come, managers, and within that pool, there needs to be staff who are committed to seeing the process through. So kind of staff investment is really important. If staff don't want to do something, you'll probably all know what it's like. It can be challenging. So they need to know the benefits and be invested in it. So I feel very fortunate that here at ISR we have a committed team who remain focused on the goals and who are prepared to work through all the challenges that arise during the process, all of which have been and can be overcome with patience, good communication, compassion, and grace. And that's where we are. It's just been a game changer.
That's wonderful, Mel. Yeah, and it is a process. The patience always pays off. I mean, it's incredible hearing how much of an impact it's made already, and then on top of that, that it's not it's still in the works of implementing more and more into further departments. So just we're gonna, before we get into the Q&A, just want to share just kind of some highlights on Better Impact. So just a little bit about us before I do a quick overview. So our company started by a fluke. It was founded by our CEO, Tony, and he had a passion project of building a web-based volunteer management software solution for a residential hospice where his mother was at, and that founded the birthings of our company. It was founded in Canada, but now we've expanded. We're in the United States, so and then across the waters, United Kingdom, Australia. We're all around the globe. Like what Mel mentioned, you can reach out to us at 11 o'clock at night, and somebody will be awake to help answer a question. That's kind of where our culture lies. We're here to help company, and we have customers around the globe. We specialize in volunteer management software, and then we have other modules like client impact, which we're discussing today, and then member impact that Mel just mentioned, and then even a donor module as well that integrates with volunteer impact. So yeah, let me go ahead and switch gears and share my screen here. I'm going to go ahead and log into the admin portal. And remember, like when Mel mentioned, you can have unlimited tailored admins. She did briefly mention like sub accounts, enterprise, just so everybody knows that's for organizations that have like multiple locations or departments, and not everybody has those. So it's also possible to have a single standard account as well. So it just kind of depends on what you need, and we're able to work with your tailor to kind of what kind of addition you need from there. And when someone logs in, they'll have their own specific like a profile where they can see an overview of the program. Like right here, I just want to show just like the status update. This is giving us an overall summary of who's all within our volunteering program. For those who have like applied, like Mel mentioned, one of the top features, the customizable application form. You can have a volunteer apply online where you can brand it to your website if you would like, and then you can make as many different kinds of questions as you like. That can be long text response, so they can answer in detail why they want to volunteer with your program. They can upload documentation, and once the volunteer submits that application, communications are going to happen on both ends. One, to the volunteer, letting them know what their next steps are. So as soon as they submit, they'll be notified right away by email what their next steps are. Since you set up a customized automated email for new applicants, it can be a link to like a background check or a training. And then anyone on your team can be chosen to receive an email once that new applicant has arrived. So that's going to prompt you to sign in, just like how I did here. And then we can review those profiles on here. So like when I click applicant, it's going to show the 4 people who have recently applied. And then I can dive into their profile, review what they've responded on the application form, and then mark which steps they need to complete to be a part of the program, which again is going to be a customization on your end. So I'm just going to quickly dive into a profile on here, Mr. Henry Upshaw, our new volunteer who's applied. Like I've mentioned, all the information from that application form will be transferred in here. So now I'm just simply reviewing the profile. What Mel mentioned on here, and this works for both a volunteer and or a client profile, and it'll display on here like what profile represents if this is a volunteer or a client. And either way, there's that note log section where she mentioned where you can save any specific notes on them. And then you can see a history, and then the volunteer and or the client will never be able to see that section, as only admins with that specific access will be able to see any previous notes on volunteers and or clients. And then custom fields. This is where we find their like responses from the application. And as we're reviewing them, we can set up and customize what are called qualifications in our software. And these are the requirements to volunteer that we customize, and we determine what these are. So like completing a background check, once Henry's completed that, we can notate it's been passed, marked when it's been expired. So then that way we can be notified on our main page when there's an upcoming expiration, like a background check. And that's one of the helpful like alerts to help make your job easier, is being notified when there's an upcoming training for a volunteer that's expiring. So then you're a click away from just sending them an email that they need to get that completed using an email template. Then the email uses the time clock too. So that's another helpful handy alert. So you're a click away from seeing who's all clocked in, their name, what they're doing. You can edit their clocks if they need to. And then from what you mentioned, like for volunteers needing to upload new information like a driver's license, you can choose to track those particular items for when there have been changes to, so then you can review those types of changes in our custom field approvals. And then just kind of wrapping up here, so we can move volunteers into particular stages. So in process, when they're onboarding, and then once they're active, we can move them into the accepted status, which now they're active, they're part of the program. And then lastly, there's inactive and archives. The difference being inactive are those who are, they're not volunteering right now, but they plan to return. And archive is a more permanent, they've resigned, they're not volunteering anymore. With the client module, you can toggle and flip between the different profiles on here. So now these numbers are representing clients. And then we can always engage for recognition up here for any upcoming birthdays and anniversaries to send reminder texting emails. And then just kind of wrapping up the admin side, I'm just going to go over the main page here. There'll be a comprehensive demonstration. Everybody will get sent, but something that Mel mentioned, I believe, were these pin searches on here. I don't know if you're mentioning these. These are unique searches you can save and be a click away from to either communicate with volunteers, communicate with clients, or simply find a list. Like this is a demo hospice account. This is showing which patients have particular interests in companionship visits, or volunteers who are onboarding. These are volunteers, they still haven't completed the background check process. So I can quickly pull that list of those volunteers and remind them, rather than creating and finding the search again, since I've already saved it and pinned it to my login. Now I just click it, and then I'll pull up who those volunteers are. And then I can quickly send an email using a template that's personalized. So Donna, Graham, Henry, Will, they'll all get that reminder to be a part of the program. They need to complete the background check. And from there, they'll receive that email from you, and all the responses will follow in your natural email inbox. And then wrapping up on the admin side before I quickly show the volunteers portal is something that's very helpful is any page that you land on, you can save it as a favorite. So that way you have quick navigation to it. So like right here, I can quickly access a list of which volunteers are working with which clients in the software, or vice versa. So now I'm just going to quickly flip views to the volunteer side of things. So then, like Mel mentioned, there's an app too. So so they can log not only on a browser version, but there's an app called My Impact Page available for Apple and Android, and it's a branded environment. You're able to upload your own banner. You can modify the color schemes to reflect the branding of your org. X and Facebook can be embedded on here. They can see any news from your newsletters that you want to share on here. You can there's files for them to quickly access. And then Mel did mention they can see a preview of which like who they're working with on here, and you can customize what information you want them to see. Maybe not everybody wants volunteers to see like their personal information. That can be excluded, or you can be included if you would like. But it gives volunteers a way to set up that interaction as successful as they'll know a little more about Charlie before we meet with him, and then they'll be able to record and report those hours on here. We try to keep this portal as simplistic as possible. They can reach out to you for any help too, should the volunteers have any help, and they have their own also helpful like articles as well for learning how to navigate from within their portal. So for now with that, I see everybody. Thank you, everybody, for your questions and your patience. We're going to go ahead and move over to the Q&A part of this. Just one last thing before I do that, and that is, let me find my PowerPoint on here. So then that way, oh, here we go. There we go. Now I can move to the next slide. Just a final reminder of the resources coming along your way. Just watch out in the next 24 hours or so for links to this recording, a comprehensive demo of volunteer and client impact, and then a link to book with me, should you want to chat with me about your needs one-on-one. And then I'm going to drop this certificate, and then I'll get caught up on your engagement and all of your questions on here. And I'll first start with, so Kate, so multiple, oh wait, let's see. Wondering if when we'd be able to have client groups be applied to activities. So with our software, you're able to, so the activities, what the volunteer signs up for, and you're able to associate client profiles with that activity on there. So that way you're able to report on those interactions on there. I don't know if that's what you were mentioning on there, but feel free to clarify. Ursula, do you get support for customizing reports? So we do have general support, like Mel mentioned. So if you have any questions on like how to make reports, you can always rely on our general support through chat, phone, and email. And during the week, we tend to respond within 5 minutes. On the weekends, we're more periodic. In terms of specific, and then we do offer like specific trainings too, like for helping with reporting, where we offer web sessions too at a rate. Multiple clients, some way of checking. Okay, so I think this follows up with Kate's question. So multiple clients signed up to activities or some way of checking off attendance to groups, like client time clock. So yeah, that's something that's not currently supported. That's not supported with the software. The only volunteers are able to sign up like for activities. The clients get associated with the data that volunteers are recording those hours and feedback on, and then volunteers have the ability to clock in, and clock out. Okay, Heidi, you spoke of internal communications with other organizations. Is this for volunteers to access other resources in the community for clients, or is it for volunteers to be available to multiple organizations? So, and correct me if I'm wrong. So it's possible for a volunteer with their same login to be a part of multiple organizations, and then from their own personal portal, they can choose which organization they want to see sign up for, log those hours, and those separate organizations will never know like if that volunteers with the other organization, since the data is all separated and secure for each organization. But the volunteer will be able, since they've gone through each organization's process, they'll be able to see a view of both of those organizations and what they can sign up for. Carol, when mass emails are sent to volunteers, are their email address blinded so they don't see? Correct. They are BCC'd. Heidi, the fee for so our subscription's an annual fee, and it's going to be the pricing is going to be dependent on the number of volunteers. And if you're in Canada, the pricing is going to be different too. So that's something where you can book directly for me for any questions on pricing, or yeah. Is there a way to link multiple clients to a household, or to link clients to each other, even if they aren't in the same household? So the client profiles get linked with the volunteer profiles. I don't know if there's Mel, did you have anything on your terms?
Yeah, I know for us, when we wanted to link or group profiles together, we created different codes. So say, for example, for our member module, we were wanting to have, all the 5 people in our community who offer foot care, for example. So we could create a code called O5 foot care, and then we just have a code list. So that could be a way of working around having like a family list. It could be like you have a certain coding for a family. But yeah, there are workarounds, I think, for that kind of thing. I don't think there's an initial a way to connect them, unless of course you do a custom field that includes family names, and then you do a search based on the custom field. That's another way around it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It had to, if there was a way, it'd have to be regarding the custom fields on there. And something that's also like helpful as well for these like great like specific questions. On our website too, there's a way to open a trial, like what Mel mentioned. And this is one of those things where it'd be great to like kind of test into see like how that would look when making those households as a custom field. Can we enter? Okay, so Tish is asking about the amount of profiles. So patients change frequently. Yeah, being in a hospice, can we enter a limited amount of clients? Enable to archive. You can do both. You can have unlimited client profiles, and you can move them to each status. And client is all a it's a flat fee. It doesn't matter how many client profiles there are, and you can hold unlimited archived. So is there any way to track attendance aside? So for our software is not really tuned for tracking of attendance per se. For volunteering, it's good for it tracks whether they like signed up for particular activities or logged hours, and that's not always the same as if they actually attended on their. You can run reports on like which volunteers have they signed up for particular activities, and also have like not logged hours, and maybe you're using like a time clock, and that's the only way they clock in and clock out. So that can kind of help decide if they show or not show. But our software is not necessarily built for tracking attendance.
Yeah, I can give a little feedback
Yeah.
on that we use, Micah.
Yeah.
So as a case manager, we offer support groups, and so we actually use in the client profile, we use the feedback fields in encounters. And so we have feedback fields that are based on a particular activity that's not a volunteer activity, Parkinson's support group, caregiver support group. And then we use a checkbox to just add the number 1, and that creates the report that we actually give to our Northwest Regional Council. So that's a way of doing it, depending on what the activity is.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mel. Yeah, and that kind of helped into Heidi's question, because she was kind of asking about the evaluations of collecting the data, and that's the feedback fields are what you use. So when volunteers record their time, you customize what kind of questions you want to ask on, then you can report on that. Thank you so much for helping Kate. As you know, like Mel's using the software. That's why she's on here. She can help answer those questions a whole lot more since she's dove into it. Oh, thank you so much, Leah. So yeah, that's awesome. To see if we can how use it. We're in a different kind of operation. You're welcome. Yeah. And keep an eye out for the upcoming email for any other resources. We do have, I know some people have left, but we do have a few more minutes. So I'll just wait a minute or so. And if not, then I guess we can call it a day. I wanted everyone to give a big thanks before they leave to Mel, and everyone who participated. This has been wonderful. It's been very insightful, Mel. Yeah, we're so lucky to have you on to share everybody's story. Everyone's it seems like they found a lot of value in it. Yeah, this has been absolutely wonderful. I appreciate everybody's time, and like I said, more helpful resources along the way. Again, one last big thanks to Mel.
Pleasure.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate everybody joining today. Take care.